Okay, so this is rather interesting backstory of my first visit to Robben Island and how that came about. 14th of August, 1991. On the road to Robben Island. With the release of Nelson Mandela in 1990 and the unbanning of the liberation movements, I was a little bit concerned that maybe the authorities would, seeing as we were heading up for democratic elections and all that kind of stuff, they would demolish the installations and the facilities at Robben Island. So there'd been no proof or evidence or no historical record of all the people that had spent time there and what they'd been through, etc. So I put an application into the authorities saying that I wanted to, as a documentary filmmaker, I wanted to record for archive purposes Robben Island, and particularly the prison where the political prisoners had been kept. They gave me permission. So with my good friend and cinematographer Peter Tischhauser, we went down to go and record Robben Island. This was our second attempt. We had gone down a couple of weeks before, and when we arrived at the wharf, they said, "Oh, sorry, bad weather. No, the seas are too rough. We're not going out." So we had to come back to Joburg. Anyway, I made an arrangement that for this time I would call them in the early hours of the morning before we caught our flight, just to check that they were going out and all was good. And they said it was. And so we flew down in August, and we went across, all was good, and we went across to the island to film. So 14th of August 1991. This is us on our way out. And filming along the way, of course, on the boat, etc., to Robben Island. When we got to the island, they were extremely courteous and hospitable and accommodating. But I had requested that we stay over because I said, I wanted to film into the sunset, etc., and not be rushed, and we'd like to stay over because the regular boat that goes to and from, I think, leaves at 4:30 or whatever in the afternoon to go back to Cape Town mainland. And we wanted to film, as I said, into the last light, and that had been approved. But when we got there, I guess they were kind of like a bit of a reclusive community. They'd had all this time as a little community living on the island, self-contained, just going into Cape Town for supplies and things like that, I guess. Not too many intruders coming in, and they had a way of life there. And so they were a little bit reclusive and protective. And what was fascinating was that all the cars that were there were, I think they were from the 60s. There were these old Anglias with broken back windscreens, burst seats and things like that. Obviously, they hadn't been replaced, etc. But that was quite fascinating. Our host, a lady and a gentleman, picked us up, and then they took us around the island, and we filmed everything.
People requested to stay here. So.
And this is what's known as B section.
B section.
Okay. Well, fine. I can shoot sort of plenty here. So if you want to walk down there.
Okay.
Okay, now, the big tank. So you're going to help me. You're going to have to pull focus to 1.5. Just doing as absolutely impossible. It's going to be quite a slow move, yeah? Very slow. Okay. Well, this is... right from the floor, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, there'll be a bit of stuff. And then just tilt up. So just keep going.
Yep.
And then you can just dissolve in. Picking up a close-up and then a wider. You can come here, that's fine. Don't hide away. Sorry, I can see your shadow. statue.
Yes, you should have put a lot of it.
Could we just film that, just while it's still light, before we go inside? The entrance here, where it says Robben Island.
Oh, and that's
Yeah, on that side. In what sense? From when? When you arrived?
No. Okay, you've got different ones.
So while we were filming, as I said, we had requested that we could stay over and film into the last light. They said, very excited, "Oh, don't worry, you can film as late as you like. We've organized a special boat. Don't worry about the ferry that goes back normally. We've organized a special boat that when you finished, whatever time you finish, will take you back to the mainland." So, as I say, they were quite reclusive, and they didn't really want us staying over. And thought, okay, well, that's fine. So we filmed into the last light, got everything we wanted. And yes, and they took us to the wharf, and mission accomplished. Very happily saw us onto the boat, bid us goodbye, and off we went to Cape Town mainland.
I felt a bit rushed, but it was really quite interesting in certain ways, and in other ways a bit disappointing in a way. Don't you think so?
Well, it's hard to digest.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem. I mean, I sort of felt like I hadn't actually got off the boat.
And so back to the mainland, or so we thought. About 20 minutes into the journey, suddenly there was a splutter, and the guy who was working the boat said, "Oh my God, one of the engines had cut out," and he tried, and he couldn't bring it back to life. And he said that, under the rules and the regulations, he was not permitted to continue going on his way to Cape Town with only one motor. So he's apologized, he's very sorry, he'd have to turn back and take us back to the island. So, we turned around and off we went back to the island.
Well, that was close, but in this rough sea out here, we just couldn't make it, so back we go.
And, of course, we were met by rather dismayed hosts again. This is the last thing that they'd wanted. They took us to the guest house.
Well, I think it's absolutely wonderful. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And then took us across to the mess where we had a warder's supper. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was like stew or something like that. But no, it was all good. And then they took us back to the guest house and said, "Well, isn't there like a bar here, on the island? We'd just like to go and sit and have a drink and chill." And no, there's nothing. No, we must. We must settle down in the guest house because they're going to wake us at 4:30 in the morning because the ferry leaves. It's going to leave at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or whatever. So, we settled down, and once our hosts had left, we then went out and we found a bar. And we went in, and again, quite a sort of reclusive community. Nobody came up and greeted us and sort of said, come over and have a drink or anything like that. But we went to the bartender and, ordered drinks and paid for them. And then we went and sat in one corner while the other little groups went and was all sitting huddled around in the other corners. And we enjoyed our drinks. And then we went back to the guest house where we settled down for the night. And the next morning, early in the morning, our host picked us up. I can't remember whether they gave us breakfast. Possibly they did. I don't know. Can't remember. And then we boarded the ferry, and off we went back to Cape Town mainland. And that's the backstory as to my archive collection, the footage that we shot, that Peter Tischhauser, great stuff that he shot on our journey on the 14th, 15th of August 1991.